Welcome to the Medium Format 3D Special Interest Group meeting. My name is Linda Nygren, and I am the coordinator for SIGs at this year's virtual convention. Medium format film-based photography is considered by many to provide the ultimate in 3D viewing experience. And although we, of course, will not have the opportunity to view medium format slides at this meeting, we decided it would still be worthwhile to have a gathering of those interested in this form of photography. There is also an online medium format 3D group on groups.io, for which I will post the address in the chat for anyone who would like to continue these discussions or get more information. Our meeting today will be led by Stephen Lederman and Ian Andvog, two members of the MF3D group who have graciously volunteered. Stephen reports getting hooked on stereo slides in the 1990s after a fortuitous discovery of some funny slides with two pictures and a Codaslide viewer while he was researching the music of Raymond Scott. Ian relates that he discovered medium format 3D in 2015, and he hasn't found anything better since. I would add that Ian's other claim to fame is that he makes medium format cardboard slide mounts, since they are getting hard to find elsewhere. Ian is going to start us out with kind of an overview, and then Stephen will continue after that. So it's all yours, Ian.
All right, thank you. I'm just going to share my screen here. Are you all seeing this? Looks good?
Yeah.
Excellent. All right, well, welcome everyone to the Medium Format 3D Special Interest Group. As Linda said, my name's Ian Andvog, and so I'm going to give a brief little introduction to medium format, and then I'll pass it off to Stephen. So I guess I probably better start with what medium format 3D is. So here's an example of one of my medium format slides. As the name implies, it's basically taking pairs, stereo pairs onto medium format film. And I like John Thurston's definition to include anything larger than 35mm full frame as part of MF3D. One of the earliest formats that might have been considered medium format is the old glass plate format, measuring 6 by 13 centimeters. And later, a lot of those cameras were later converted to use the modern 120 roll film that we often associate with the format. Today, really, when anyone is talking about medium format 3D, we're usually referring to slide film, which is viewed in a backlit handheld viewer. So you can do prints for sure, but really medium format 3D, it shines where we're using slides. So this is really going to be the most challenging part of the presentation here. I can try and describe why I think medium format is such a captivating medium, but it's quite tricky. Really, the only way to do it justice, I think, is to see it with your own two eyes. So if you ever get a chance, maybe at a convention in Tacoma next year or something like that, really take a look through somebody's viewer. It's an unforgettable experience, I think. The main reason to shoot medium format is for its superb technical image quality, certainly not for its speed or cost or convenience. I mean, just look at the size of this camera, right? One thing to know about medium format is that it's full of limitations, and that can be frustrating, but it's also kind of liberating because it allows you to focus on a smaller number of variables and really focus your attention on what matters. So when you shoot medium format slides, the resolution that you see is the resolution that you captured on the film. There simply doesn't exist any better display medium that can hold a candle into film in terms of line pairs per millimeter. And this is important because it allows you to display the images side by side in a simple Brewster type stereoscope. Digital cameras nowadays are extremely impressive with dozens of megapixels, and that's really awesome. But when you want to look at them, you're often limited to quite a bit less. For example, if you're using dual 4K monitors, you're only limited to about seeing 8 megapixels at a time. I'm certainly not a digital basher. I love digital. And I think that digital excels primarily as a capture medium, and of course, all the modifications we can do after the fact. But slide film really excels as a display medium. It's really, really impressive. And to that point, slide film in a handheld viewer, I think, is pretty much an ideal presentation medium. You have total control over the viewing conditions, and you know what they are prior to shooting, so you can optimize your shooting parameters to really make the most of the format. The viewer is enclosed, and it blocks out the external world. And so all you see is the image in front of you and nothing else in the world to distract you. The jet black background with backlighting gives an extremely rich, brilliant image. And you may have seen a TV or a monitor advertised as having a contrast ratio of 1,000 to 1, or maybe a really high-end one has 4,000 to 1. Well, slide film is really awesome. It has a contrast ratio of 10,000 to 1 easily. And it will truly knock your socks off. So that's all I can give you as an image here. Sorry about that. So one last slide here about why shooting medium format 3D. In this chart here, I'm listing the apparent diagonal fields of view for 3 of the most popular film formats using their standard viewer. So if ViewMaster is like watching TV from your couch, then Realist format is like sitting at the back row in a movie theater, and medium format is like being in the front row. And with a wide angle viewer, it might even approach IMAX levels of immersion. Medium format appears much larger than the other slide formats and really gives you the impression of being in a place. There are, of course, even more immersive mediums, such as virtual reality that we heard earlier about in the convention, but really nothing comes close to the combination of both sharpness and immersion that you can get with medium format. The large size of the film requires less magnification, and the high resolution can easily hold up to that magnification. And of course, there's no screen door effect that you're likely to see in high magnification digital displays. Even small deviations are visible in medium format, and these subtle 3D depth cues pretty much eliminate the cardboarding effect that can plague some other formats. So hopefully I've convinced you that medium format has some of the best that 3D has to offer. I've put together a few slides here giving an overview of how medium format is done, but I really want to get to the Q&A part and Stephen's part, so I'm going to breeze through this fairly quickly, and if there are questions, we can take them up and dive deeper in the second part. So the first decision you have to make is what film you're going to shoot with. Basically, there are 4 slide film stocks currently available. There's 3 from Fuji and 1 from Kodak, since they reintroduced Ektachrome in early 2020. It's also possible to shoot many different black and white films, but it's a little bit more difficult to process them. So I'm mostly going to leave the camera discussion to Stephen, but here I've listed 3 of what I think are the most commonly used dedicated stereo cameras in medium format that are used by artists in 2021. Of course, you can use twin cameras on a slide bar, or you can use a single camera cha-cha style, lots of options for sure. Really, if you want to get started in medium format, I strongly recommend the Sputnik. It can be had on eBay in reasonable condition for about 150 bucks. And with a few small tune-ups, you can create views which are almost indistinguishable from some higher end rigs. And of course, if you break it, you're only out a smaller amount of money. There's no battery to die. It has a number of advantages. It's quite lightweight and only a bit larger than a DSLR camera. So to get the most out of the format, shooting technique is really important. So especially if you're using a Sputnik which has triplet lenses, not as modern lenses as many cameras have nowadays, the general advice is to stop down to about f/16 or so, use lens hoods, use a tripod, really take your time and set up the shot nicely. Slide film is pretty picky about exposure, so you're going to probably want to use a handheld light meter to make sure you nail the exposure down. And for some helpful tools, I'd really recommend checking out Mike Davis's website. I've linked to it here. And he's got a lot of interesting calculators and technical articles that can help you make the most of your gear and really get impressive results. So after you have shot your film, the next step you're going to have to do is process it. And so the easiest way to get your film developed is just to take it to a lab. There's many still available that are developing slide film, or you can also send it out by mail order to a foreign lab. It's also possible to develop slide film at home, and both Stephen and myself do this, so you're welcome to ask us about that in the second part. For black and white, it's a little bit more difficult, but definitely doable. You can do it at home. I've delved down that rabbit hole, but the easiest thing is this lab in the States in Colorado called DR5 Chrome, and they offer direct reversal processing, which allows you to get a positive image from any black and white film instead of normally what you get, which is a negative. And they even offer a really cool sepia option, as you can see in 2 of Stephen's images here. All right, so once you've got the film developed, the next step is to mount the film. Basically here, you're just snipping the pair apart and swapping the images so that it will appear in regular stereo instead of pseudo. And this is a little bit challenging, but with some practice, it's not too bad. The larger film chips are a little bit easier to handle than some smaller formats. I'm not going to take a lot of time to walk through this process, but I wrote an article on my website you can check out, and there's lots of people willing to help out in the medium format group if you've got questions about this. I think viewers are one of the major limitations right now to somebody starting in medium format. So here are 3 of the most popular ones that were commercially available years ago and sometimes show up in the used market today. And many people used to build their own viewers back in the day as well, so you could ask somebody about that maybe. The prices I've listed here were rough prices at the time of introduction, so don't expect that this is anything like the used market today. The stock King In viewer is not absolutely amazing, but the other 2 were really great, and some people upgraded the lenses in the King In, and then it was also quite good. As for current currently available viewers. Lawrence Haida made this awesome viewer some years back, and I'm not really sure if it's still available. I haven't heard from Larry recently, but if you can get a chance to view slides through one of these, you're going to be really impressed, I think. And so that leaves Mate's viewer that some of you maybe have heard about. It was originally designed for a Sony cell phone, I believe, but he has recently made an attachment which allows you to view medium format slides in it. So that's an option. Sharing images is really, I think, probably the best part of the hobby. And so there are 2 folios circulating in North America. I'm not sure about outside of North America and Europe. Perhaps there are some, and somebody can tell us about those. It would be really great if we could start up an international one day again. I know that was existing in the past. But really, it's awesome to be able to comment on other people's images and get feedback on your own and continue to grow as a photographer. And you get to see a huge, diverse a range of subject matter of all different techniques, different cameras, and different subjects. And it's really, really awesome part of the hobby. Absolutely recommend you get a chance, definitely take a chance to view a slide folio. So hopefully I've piqued your interest. If I have, I definitely recommend joining this medium format interest group on groups.io. The link is here, and I think Linda posted in the chat. I see too here. It's really the hub of the community, I think, and there's lots of knowledgeable and friendly people ready to help you out if you got questions. And so if you're interested in learning more, definitely check that out. And the second link is for the folios if you're wanting to find out a little bit more information about that. So I think that's all I've got here, and I'm going to pass it off to Stephen now. I'm going to stop sharing.
Great. Thank you, Ian. That was the technical part of the presentation, and now we'll get into just basically a show and tell. Ian was talking about people starting out in medium format, and that the Sputnik is usually recommended. Here's a Sputnik camera here. Usually they come with some deficiencies. They were made in the Soviet Union in the 60s. I don't think the quality control was all that great. They suffer sometimes from internal reflections and light leaks. I haven't had any problems with this one. So sometimes you get a good one just right off the bat. Maybe it was made on a Tuesday or a Wednesday or something. And if you I keep this stylish case on. It's extremely stylish. And that helps with, I guess, also preventing any sort of light leaks or things of that nature. Now, before that was available in the 60s, a lot of people used to shoot medium format with another camera that Ian mentioned, the kaleidoscope. This one came from the original owner, which was sort of cool, except they only used it as a singular camera. They put a cap over one of the lenses. These are 75 millimeter Tessars, and this is a wonderful option. If you can get one of these for a reasonable price, there's it's like a waist level finder. Some people have put a prism on theirs, and this is the lens shade. Also helps to cut down glare. And this is the kind of case it came. Also, some people didn't want to use either of those kinds of cameras, and this whole sort of hacking group developed. People building their own equipment. I guess people do the same thing now with digital. One of the hackers that you might have heard of before was Sam Smith. Sam Smith used to have a website called Stereoscopica, I think, stereoscopia.com. I think you can still find it on the Wayback Machine. If you type that in there, it'll show you the last snapshot that was taken of that website. And on there, you'll see the different kinds of cameras Sam used to put together, the different kinds of viewers. As a matter of fact, he created a TL120 before there was a TL120. And I know that after the TL120 was introduced, Sam was helping to develop make everything better, and he offered improvements to the company, and the company actually listened. And I can show you both kinds of TL120s in a minute. But this is one of Sam's cameras. It's a wonderful travel camera, resplendent in full ostrich skin. What Sam did was he took 2 of these Agfa isolates, and he basically cut one there, cut one here, and then put them together. So opens like this. Everything's linked. So here are the f-stops linked. Here is the focusing link. I need to find the, there we go. Here's the focusing link. And then all you do is, yeah, that's the whole thing. And when it folds up, excellent travel camera, really compact. Now, this was available pretty soon, TL120. I actually, if you go to John Thurston's website, you'll see some pictures from the 2004 convention where they first introduced a prototype for this model. And really, I prefer the prototype because the prototype didn't have the viewing lens on top. It just had the two taking lenses, and it was more of a rangefinder design, and it was much less bulky. Like, this is not a camera that, I mean, if you want to be inconspicuous and do some stealth photography, this is not the camera for you. Plus, it's heavy and it's bulky. I know some people use a Hasselblad finder on top to cut down the bulk and cut down the weight, but this prism houses the light meter, and the light meter is very accurate on this particular one. So it also had some problems with batteries in terms of getting enough voltage. If you go to John Thurston's website, you can read about all these problems and some of his solutions for it. Now, we talked about the hacking community. Well, a lot of people have been taking their TL120s, and this is an earlier model. This one had a power switch here, which wasn't really great because sometimes you'd leave it on, then your batteries would be drained. But this one, the hacking community took lenses from the Mamiya TLRs. So these are 55mm lenses. So this is basically a wide angle version of the TL120 that I just showed you. And on this one, I actually have put a Hasselblad finder on, and that's because when I bought this camera, the meter was broken, so it was no good anyways. The original TL1, these are now called TL120 55s. So the original one I had was made by Sam Smith, and it had an original 3D World lens board, and he fit the Mamiya lenses to the lens board. This lens board was made by John Thurston, made and designed by him, and he sold these with basically for $1 over cost. And anybody that wanted to try making their camera into a wide angle version was able to buy these lens boards from him. And then you just had to go and select some lenses from a Mamiya camera, pair them up, and there you go. And this one, this is much lighter than a regular TL120 because there's on the viewfinder lens, there's no, it's just the lens itself. There's no aperture, nothing like that, no shutter. So that's the, oh, and I wanted to tell you a story about this Sam Smith creation. I originally got this off of eBay from Gary Cullen. I couldn't believe there was a Sam Smith camera being auctioned on eBay. And I won this camera. And the funny thing about that is it turns out I won it for the same price that Gary bought it from the guy who bought it from Sam, and the guy paid the same price to Sam. So it sold for the same amount of money each time it was sold. But I said to Sam, I emailed him and I said, I've been using this a lot and I belong to a couple of folios and I don't know what to call it. Like every time I say that it was taken with this camera, I have to say it was taken with the two isolettes that Sam Smith put together. So he said, well, call it anything you want. And I said, well, should I use the name Smith in it? He goes, no, I prefer that you use the name Sam in it. And I was thinking, okay, they're isolettes and Sam, and we wound up calling it the Samulette. I don't know if anybody is a Frank Zappa fan here, but there's a song called Camarillo Brillo, and there's lyrics. She had a snake for a pet and an amulet. So when I thought of let and Sam, it's a Samulette. And so if you join the folios and you see that I posted an image made with the Samulette, that's what this is. Okay. Now, some people disagree with me, but some people think that all stereo photos should be pin sharp and, you know, in focus throughout the entire picture, but I like to experiment a lot. And I find myself buying cameras to try and get a different look. I sometimes use expired film to get a different look and use different processing to get a different look. And so I wind up buying cameras like this one here, the eHole box camera. It just has meniscus plastic lenses, basically one shutter speed, and they have 2 water stop f-stops. So like this is f11 and that's f16. And there's all your shutter speeds right here. Now, the good thing about this is it does have a thing for a cable release. So you could put it on a tripod and get a steady shot. I put a shot in the latest folio from this camera. No one's actually said they've liked it. It's been more of like, that's really interesting. That's an interesting shot. Somebody just said it was terrifying. So it was a shot of a slide that looked like it was stone. If you find something like this in an antique store, something that has a obsolete film size, and you still want to use it for taking stereos, this is an old Kodak. So this comes out, you know, sort of like a 4x5 camera. But if you find a camera like this and you can't get film for it anymore, there are lots of sites that make adapter kits. So even though this is a 122 film size, I can still use 120 film in it by using these 3D printed adapters. Okay. Now, another thing I like to use to get a different look in medium format are pinhole cameras, stereo medium format pinhole cameras. The first one I got was this Holga. These used to be really cheap, but I think now with, you know, a lot of kids getting into film photography and stuff, and the Holga company has gone under, this is, I think the prices have gone up a little bit. I like this model because it actually has a cable release on it, which a lot of other pinhole cameras don't. I know there's somebody that's starting a Kickstarter campaign right now for medium format, and it also takes 35mm film pinhole cameras, a Minuta, I think it's called, Minuta Stereo. I have a couple of other pinhole cameras that were 3D printed in limited editions by a couple of enterprising gentlemen. I don't know which one's in which box. Okay. This is the flyer from Clint O'Connor. And he created this in a limited edition, sort of hard to see. Okay, there we go. This is all 3D printed. And this is the shutter here. Oh. There. And you wind on every 2 shots. So the first exposure is at 1, second at 3, you know, regular kind of thing. The other one was actually 3D printed from environmentally friendly material. It's a guy named Todd Schlemmer, and he has a lot of great designs on, what's it called? Thingy Universe? It's one of those things. Just look up the
It's Thingiverse.
Oh, okay, Thingiverse. Thank you.
Yeah.
So Todd Schlemmer, or the Schlem, and this one, if you're a Leica fan, it actually loads in the same way. You have to slip the film down in between. But the way this shutter works, So you have to have a pretty steady hand, put these on tripods. I got them to do red and blue for anaglyph, Let's see, what else do I have here? Oh, we've been pushing the boundaries a bit in the folios about what constitutes medium format. So a couple of us have shot with Cha-Cha with 645 format film. So not quite the usual 6x6. It's more like a 35 millimeter aspect ratio, but it's on medium format film. Now we're starting to discuss maybe adding some 127 film. I don't know, we'll see how it goes, but I do have a great stereo 127 camera here. It's the baby version of the Kaleidoscope. Tiny little guy here. All the same things. For the lens cover to ward off glare and stuff. It's the exact same design, only it's about half the size. This would be a great travel camera too if 127 film was readily available. But right now I'm cutting my own from a bulk roll film. And you can get stuff like this too in 127. This is called a Nordetta. It's a very simple camera, much like that box EHO camera. Just limited controls, limited shutter speed, but it's fairly simple to use. It's basically you cock the shutter, and take your photo. You want me to go into? I have some stuff here from the from 3D World, like the mounting jigs and stuff like that. Do you want to take a look at that, Ian?
Why don't we open it up to questions for a minute and see if there's anybody who's got some particular insights,
Sure.
and then if people are interested in that, we can show that.
Sure.
I didn't see any questions in the chat, but does anyone have any question they'd like to address by unmuting themselves? Show and tell from David Starkman, I see.
You have to unmute yourself, David.
Hold on, David. You need to unmute.
Sorry. Like Steve, I started with a Sputnik back in the 1980s. And like Steven, I got lucky. It was a good one. And it actually still works. I didn't use it for like over 20 years. And then I tried it again. Still was working fine. And the key is, for me, I always leave the case on to prevent any light leaks. And I have some collapsible rubber lens shades that I always leave on it, and always use the lens shades, and that reduces any internal reflection rather than flocking the camera. And the results, I think, are just as good as what I've seen out of the TL120 when it's good. But what revived my interest was the Stereo World lighted viewer and their plastic mounts. I had unmounted film from way back then that I had not gotten around to, that I finally remounted in the plastic mount. And then just one quick show and tell, since you're showing all those cameras. Back in the 1980s, one of our customers from Real 3D wrote me and said he had made a bet. This was a fellow from Denmark, that he could make a stereo camera for under $10. And this was the result. It's two secondhand Diana plastic cameras.
Wow.
And the famous Diana is a 120 roll film, cheap plastic camera that's still available. It's been made under other names, and film schools use it as a teaching tool. And he chopped two apart, and he used a nylon thing that wraps all the way around and pulls both shutters, and they really are actually pretty damn well in sync. The only thing it doesn't have is he didn't come up with anything for matching the numbering on the film. So I've only shot with it a couple of times way back then, and I had to sort of guess on the advancing. So I lost a couple of pictures due to overlap. And of course, the quality's not great, but I thought it was a fun show and tell item, that it's probably the cheapest homemade medium format stereo camera ever made.
I want to shoot with it.
Yeah. And wait, I'll open it up so I can show you the insides. But he did a really nice job. And I ended up trading him a coronet camera for it. And when he got it, he wrote back and said, "Oh, great! I was looking for a body to put really good lenses on." So he wasn't going to use it as is. And this is the inside of the, so you did a pretty nice job chopping it apart and putting it together.
Yeah, it looks very
If anybody
clean.
wants to, they're still available pretty cheap. If anybody else wants to copy the idea.
I need more
Anyway,
cameras. I should.
that's my show and tell. That's it.
Thanks, David. That's really cool. I see Colleen has got her hand raised, and then I see Bob and Boris are interested in the mounting jig. So if you want to get that ready, Stephen, while
I'm getting it
asks the
ready, yep.
question. Okay, go ahead, Colleen.
Hi, great to meet you, Ian and Steve. I'm really enjoying the presentation. It reminds me of my first NSA convention in 2012. I met John Thurston at a SIG special interest group for medium format shooters, and he had his images, oh man, beautiful ice.
Right, yeah.
The viewer, and my mind was blown because at that point I'd been shooting 120 film with my Sputnik for a while. And the thing is, I love making cards, real stereographed cards, the physical thing, and matting and framing them. So I'm sticking with that. I'm not shooting slides. Maybe I will one day, but I wanted to show my Sputnik because it looks a little bit different. And I don't know if you guys have heard of Don Lopp. I'm sure some of the older people in NSA remember Don Lopp. He passed a few years, unfortunately. But when I first got...
Here's a Don Lopp camera.
Okay. Super cool. I lived in Seattle and I was for a little while, 2011 to 2013. Don was a member of the Puget Sound Stereoscopic Society Camera Club. And I brought my Sputnik to him because he was the Sputnik fix-it guy. And it came back with, it was Don Lopp, his handwriting all over it. And he even remembered I was complaining about, for this darn getting fingers, my fingers were killing me. And he also went in and dealt with the flock, put some flocking.
Oh, yeah.
He just did a lot of things. Then he thought this was totally him. Who needs to see what number exposure you're on? Let's just, he took, you could see what number you were on. Sorry, he just took the red filter out of there altogether. So he gave it back to me, and it was not my Sputnik, but it was my Don Lopp Sputnik, a very special thing to have. So you're inspiring me to get back out there. I guess that's my story. Thanks.
I know he used to put viewfinders, rangefinders from, was it Polaroid camera on top of some of the Sputniks that he worked on.
Yeah. And have you seen a PDF? I don't think he put it together, but it's out there on the internet. If anyone wants it, it's about like how to fix the main problems with your Sputnik. It's a PDF that I came across maybe in 2010 or so. I've still got it. Maybe I could just send it over to one of you guys and you could disperse it to the group if it's helpful.
Sure thing. Yeah, that's great. Stephen, do you want to show those
Sure.
mounting equipment maybe?
Yeah, I don't know if anybody else had this experience, but when I decided to get a TL120, it was a giant leap of faith because you had to go to the Western Union office and pay cash. And the Western Union is what, you go on Craigslist and it says, don't use Western Union. There's scammers use Western Union. And here I am, with a couple $1,000 Canadian cash going to a Western Union office and just sending it off to China and hope the camera comes. Well, a couple days later, they used some TNT Express or something. And a couple days later, I got this giant package that had the TL120 in it, had this book of everlasting memory. You can put your slides inside after you have them mounted. And it also came with a viewer, a lighted viewer, and the Steal the Light viewer, some demonstration slides of farm animals. And what else did it come with? It came with this mounting jig, everlasting memory mounting jig. So I'll get the real thing here for you. Okay, so this is the mounting jig that was sent out with the 3D World kit. And basically your focus is here. That's of course where you look through. You put they used to use these plastic mounts that you saw in Ian's PowerPoint slide. And one half of the plastic mount would go into these clips here. Then you'd line up your film chips And this whole thing is lighted, by the way. You'd put on your film chips, and there's a faint grid on both of these sides. So if you line up the film chips to the grid, they should be perfectly aligned. And then you you put some tape on to secure the chips, put the top back on, and put the top on the slide, and they were snapped together, the plastic ones. This is a real pain to use with the cardboard mounts. You have to sort of scotch tape the cardboard mount upside down and backwards to here, and put the chips in backwards so that when you take the whole thing out and fold it over, everything will be right to front. I should do some sort of tutorial on that. But this is the actual 3D World mounting jig.
Great. I see Eric Kurland and Jim Harp. Let's start with Eric Kurland here.
Sure. Well, first off, I just I wanted to mention I have something I want to show, but I was told that Robert's iPad wanted to show something, and I guess he's on an iPad, so I want to spotlight Robert's iPad. There you go.
Cool. So what film format is that one? It's
You'll need to
120
unmute.
It's 120 film.
Wow.
And I took some pictures of my children, and it's just the colors were very intense and it was very well focused. So the lenses, it's in a contour shutter, and I can't read the lenses. I think it's a German lens because the camera was made by Leica, but it's called a Zodel, and the Zodel was an English distributor of cameras. I think what little research I did on it showed that it was distributed by this English company. And
There's
on the
another one
back,
for me to look for.
on the back it says, you can look through here to see the numbers. It says use alternate numbers.
Right.
So you could get six stereo pair on a roll of 120 film, and I had to at the time. I think I was actually cutting my own masks for them because there weren't any 120 paper masks,
Right.
and this was years before. So this let's see, my daughter was probably 10. So this was at least 30 years ago that I was using this camera. And then when I got the, my first of numerous relighteroscopes, I switched to the relighteroscope.
Yeah.
And was happy with that. And then it just became the last roll I shot, which was like 3 or 4 years ago. I was in Texas at the time. I took it to like a big name photo store, dropped it off. They told me it was going to be $25 to develop the roll. And then they sent me an email about a week later saying, we don't do this anymore. Come pick up your film. So I can remember back in the day, I'd go down to CVS and I'd drop off like 6 rolls of film, and it was like $2.50 a roll. And then a year later, they go, oh, we don't develop that film anymore.
Yeah, it's hard to find a place to develop film. That's why we do it ourselves.
Yeah, black and white. I shoot with my relighteroscope, and then I've actually made like 16 by 16 blow-ups and hand color them and mount them in a frame, and then I use a mirrored stereoscope to view them.
That's cool.
But not too often. Yeah.
Yeah. After yesterday, I want to start making stereo cards, especially after
Yeah.
seeing some of Colleen's beautiful cards.
Yeah.
I want to start doing that.
How do I put my hand up?
Go down to the bottom where the buttons are. You'll see a button that says reactions. If you click the reactions button, there's a big button to raise your hand.
Let's go to Jim Harp next.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yep.
First of all, I wanted to thank you guys for doing this. When we were talking about doing the virtual convention last year in 2020, I was the one who said, oh no, we're not going to do a medium format thing. What the heck is the point of doing a medium format SIG if you can't look at slides? So you guys have proven me wrong. It's been very entertaining. I just wanted to mention and informative. I wanted to mention a couple of things for anyone, and I'm curious if you agree with me on this, for anyone who's new to a Sputnik. When I first started with my Sputnik, I kept trying to focus the darn thing. That's not its strong point.
No.
I recommend, and as I say, I'm just curious if you agree with me, I recommend using a hyperfocal distance of about 15 feet on the thing, using a piece of frosted glass or even just frosted paper on, a CD case. Use the little screws to set the lenses so they're perfectly in focus at 15 feet and just leave it there, at least at first. Because at f22, everything will be in focus from 6 to 22 feet. I had about like a year of crap pictures from that thing. And then as soon as I did that, it was brilliant. And as people have said, you can get results that are, that look as good as a TL120 using those distances. Where the TL120 really excels for my use is shooting closer up portraits, because you can take that thing, set it to f8 and get it in perfect focus at 2 feet. And if you can do that with a Sputnik without taking it apart and adjusting it for just that application, the Sputnik is wonderful for hyperfocal at 6 feet, and you can shoot that way for years and get wonderful stuff. But where the TL120 excels is portraits. And also just wanted to mention a great thing about the TL120 that a lot of people don't realize is, at least the one I have and most of the others I've heard of, even though they mark the flash sync at 130, mine does flash just fine at 125.
Mine too.
On a really bright sunny day, you can stop down to f22 and with a really powerful flash, get a wonderful fill flash for a portrait. And I'm always putting those in the folios because that's just my favorite thing. So, I guess what I'm saying is that, yeah, the Sputnik's great, but honestly, the TL120 is worth it if you can afford it. It really, there's just nothing like it optically, especially for shooting close up or shooting wider open apertures. Thing is magical, and whatever you can get them for, they're worth it, in my humble opinion.
I guess it's just an issue of somebody who's just getting into it, either spending $150 or $200 as opposed to $3,500 on eBay.
Get a Sputnik to start. Absolutely. No, I'm not saying that if you just, hey, I've never shot film before, let me go buy, unless you're, independently wealthy. No, I'm not saying that. The Sputnik's a great thing to start with. And as I'm saying, I just know I spent a year with my Sputnik, and I wish someone had told me, stop trying to focus the thing. These are like 3 crappy lenses made in Ukraine that are not designed to focus close up. I just had no idea what hyperfocal, I found out the hard way. And so I'm just thought maybe I'd save someone 50 rolls of film that looked terrible, because that's about what it was for me. And then once I did that, I just have so many wonderful shots I took with that, $100 camera. You can do wonderful things with it, but it is knowing its limits,
Right.
And then and also it's flash sync on the Sputnik. I think any speed syncs to flash.
Yeah.
As far as I know.
It helps so much for portraits and things. Fill flash. It can be magical for that stuff. Anyway,
Your portraits with fill flash are pretty spectacular.
Yeah, everyone
enjoy them in the
deserves
folio.
to, absolutely. Yeah, totally agree with all Jim's comments there, for sure.
and thanks again, guys. It's been a lot of fun. Very interesting.
Yeah.
And then I did. If you see my my background here, I was in Shanghai in 2020, January 2020, working in China, and there's a little tourist attraction at the Boon, the famous skyline, where you can basically take a tunnel underneath the river there and go to the other side. And they just had like a gift shop, and sitting against the wall, there were these 6, and there were another 4 over to the corner of these carousel TL120 viewers.
Yeah, I remember when they were for sale.
And I think the company might have been based in Shanghai, or at least did a lot of stuff out of Shanghai. So my guess is they just, they brought them over there, and they've been sitting there probably for 15 years. And there were some, you put a 100 yen coin in it, about 25 cents, if I remember. And you could look at slides. It was the same slides you get for free with the thing, the farm animals and the nice Chinese scenery. But it was just, you want to talk about a surprise, seeing those.
Yeah.
Just sitting there waiting for someone to give him some love.
Great. Great.
All right, let's go to Eric Kurland, and then let's try and go to maybe a lightning round, and we'll try and get a few people here. I see there's a big queue here.
Okay. Yeah. First, I wanted to mention, Stephen, thank you for bringing up Thingiverse.
Oh, yeah.
And I wanted to show you, I have another of Todd Schlemmer's designs.
Oh, cool.
I got myself a 3D printer a couple years ago and went looking and found his website. And I wanted to first, let me share his site. So I think people might find it interesting. This is thingiverse.com. This is the camera that I printed. And Todd Schlemmer
that's the predecessor to
yeah, he's actually designed a whole bunch of cameras and camera parts that you can 3D print if you have a 3D printer, both stereo and flat.
And right at the top, you can see mine. That's my actual camera right there.
Oh yeah, that's your camera. Very, very cool. So this was his earlier version. And so, you know, it's got, these are the shutters here. But what's really interesting about this one, let me open it up, is the lens block is a separate piece. So you can actually modify the design to print different focal lengths.
Well, that's great.
Which is kind of a neat idea. And, you know, all things considered, it being a pinhole camera, let's see if you can see this, it still works pretty well.
Yes, I find that has sharp, excellent pictures, and same with Clint's flyer as well.
So I'll put a link in the chat to Thingiverse and to Todd Schlemmer's page in particular. And then the other thing I wanted to share, there were some questions about labs, and there's a lab that you might not be aware of here in Los Angeles called the Icon, and I will share their website. It's iconla.com, and if you're local to LA, they're on Wilshire Boulevard in the Miracle Mile area. And you can drop film off and get slides processed same day. If you get it there by 10, they have it done by 5. But they also do mail order, and you can send them 120 process only E6, and it's only $9 to get a roll processed and sent back to you. So they're a pro lab. They have all kinds of additional services. But I've been using them for several years now, and I highly recommend them. And I'll put their link in the chat too.
Thanks, Eric. Let's go to Kenneth Kaiser, please.
Hi, could you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, looking for some advice. I have a Horseman 612 with 4 Rodenstock large format lenses, 55, 65, 90, and 120 millimeter. How do I best take the large format stereo with this camera?
Anyone have any advice? I guess Cha-Cha, I'm not sure.
Well, I can put it on a slide bar.
Slide bar?
I have a slide bar, but this comes out with 612 format. If I try to split it with a beam splitter, I get 6x6s.
Have you had good luck with that then?
I haven't done too much, but with it, I've done some of each. But then, you know, I'm stuck with the film. What do I do then?
I know that there was somebody that was creating a stereo lens board for the 612 format. So you get the septum in the middle of the lens board, and that's how they were handling that. But I mean, if you were to do a Cha-Cha with the 612, the only other guy I know that's done something like that is a fellow in Buffalo, and his name escapes me right now, but he had the Hasselblad X-Pans, and he was taking 2 panoramic shots, and then the only way that he couldn't look at them in a viewer, but he was projecting them with two different projectors synced up in an extra large screen. The only other, the panoramascope or panoroscope by Simda, David Starkman knows all about that. They used to have panoramic stereo shots, but it was only on 16 millimeter film, so it was a lot easier to do.
But how much do I have to move it to get reasonable separation between the two?
Yeah, you'd have to, I don't know, you'd have to modify the 1/30th rule somehow. I would just do some experimenting, and see what you get. Yeah, there you go. There's a sim to slide.
Okay, let's go to Yoon, please. Yoon.
Medium format.
Not medium.
No, it's panorama.
You're muted at the moment there, Yoon. Looks like we've got a medium format camera here of some variety, like a Contura. You're muted at the moment. Are you able to unmute?
Looks like he's sitting way too far away from his computer.
Right.
Okay, while we're waiting, let's go to Don Berkeley, please.
Hello?
Go ahead, Don.
Okay, just wanted to share, can you see us?
Yep.
Okay, I just wanted to share a little homemade mounting jig. The nice thing here is very simple to make. I used a microscope stage here to
Wonderful.
give me precise movement. And then there's a behind here. This is just printed out on a piece of transparency film, a grid that I printed out from probably Excel. And the grid lines here give me the spacing for infinity and the distance for the window. So I can move the chip back and forth. I can slide the main mount back and forth, put a feature on my reference line, use the microscope slide to move the other chip back and forth to set up an item at the window or at the infinity point.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, I'll take it.
All right,
that's just what I want to share.
Thanks.
Nice jig.
Let's go back to Yoon there now. It looks like he's unmuted.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, good. All I wanted to show is I have a camera that I built myself, finished it in 2012. And it's a scale focusing 6x6, 6x13. And the reason the project started was I went to the thrift store and they had Kodak Ektar color printing lenses for like $3 a piece.
Wow.
So I bought that, and I got another set that's a bigger focal length. These are 87 millimeter. When I saw a book in the library about history of cameras, they had a lot of stereos that the focal lengths range from 75 to 90 millimeter for 120 film. So I thought that was good. The other unique feature of this is that the lenses were originally for Kodak enlarging apparatus. So they had no diaphragms other than a fixed diaphragm. So I made a bunch of Waterhouse stops. And the way that I put them in though, is that there's no slit in the lens. I have to unscrew the front element to get these things into the camera. And the other thing about it is that it's got a rubber band shutter.
Amazing.
I don't know if you saw that.
That's fantastic.
Wow, that is absolutely incredible.
Yeah, thank you. The
Absolutely.
Very pretty to look at too.
And is the other one a viewer?
yeah, the other one is a viewer. The viewer is, it's a 120 viewer. And it's made for the real 3D slides.
Right.
It has interocular separation. And it's illuminated with two 10-watt halogen bulbs. And the other thing, the reason there's kind of two wires here is the 10-watt bulbs came from the thrift store. They were originally IKEA table lamps that I cannibalized. The lenses are just out of a binoculars. So
That's fantastic
fantastic.
ingenuity. Wow. Really, really impressive. That's fantastic.
And this is a homemade one too, where the basic foam core.
That's your steel, the light.
Sorry.
bulb.
Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing.
Very well done.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. That's such a treat to see. Let's go to Bob Venezia in Seattle.
Hi, can you hear me?
You bet.
Yeah.
Okay. I've been, my latest project has been shooting with a macro box using a beam splitter. I had bought one from John Hart in Colorado a number of years ago, and I could just barely fit my Hasselblads into it. And it was a complete pain in the ass to use because every time you wound the film, like you were probably, knocking the cameras out of alignment. Every time you tried to flip the mirror, you were knocking the cameras out of alignment. It was, and then by then you didn't know if you were back in focus again.
Right.
So I built a new beam splitter, and
Wow.
it's this thing here. The cameras are at right angles. One shoots at the mirror this way. This is a 50% mirror. One shoots this way. It's got levels on it. It's got little handles so I can move it around. It's got a little tape measure in the front so I know how far I am from my subject. And I just had a 2-week vacation. That was when I first, I've done a lot of test shots in my kitchen of, just still lifes, something that you could have done with Cha-Cha. But I just shot some over the last 2 weeks, like bees on flowers and things like that. And I have to say they're probably the most impressive shots I've ever taken.
Are we going to see them in the folio?
Yeah, some just went into the Dragon folio.
Okay.
You're not going to see the best one. No, there's one that's like it just seemed like the money shot, and I couldn't believe how much depth of field I was getting. And I'm using the Hasselblad EL bodies that have a
The motor on the bottom, right?
yeah.
That's
part of the reason why I had to build a new beam splitter was to fit the height. So each of the cameras is on a macro slider itself, so I can move it back and forth. And then let's see what else. So they're motorized. So when you shoot it, it will automatically advance the film. It even has a setting so you can, once you have everything focused, you can leave the mirror flipped up. So even after it winds the film, the mirror will stay flipped up. I got a shot of a bee flying into a flower, and he did it at just the right angle so that you could, you're not just looking at his ass, but you actually see his eye.
wow.
All the hair on him and the flowers in focus. It kind of blew my mind when I saw that. So anyway, that's the most impressive thing I think I can share with you. I have a message for Ken, I think it was. Don Lopp, who was mentioned earlier, he had a formula. I don't know if it's going to work with a large format camera, but his formula was to take the focal length of your lens. I would say multiply it by 0.8. So say you had a 150 millimeter lens, that would make it like 120. Use that as your stereo base so that your cameras should be 1/120th of the distance between the cameras. It should be 1/120th of the distance between you and the nearest object that you're shooting. So you might try that for your experiment. The only other thing I wanted to mention is that Mathieu Bohat is making these 3D printed viewers. The lenses are, I would say, aren't that he's offering right now are fantastic lenses. They're not optimum, but this is an amazing thing to get right now. And I'm trying to work with him to get wider angle lenses in the viewer, but this may be the best option if you don't have a viewer. I know he's on vacation until like mid-September, but you may want to get in touch with him. Ian's going to make these slides available, and Matthew's website is going to be listed there.
But how much are they?
You know, I can't remember. I think the body itself was like around $200, but then the lenses, they were somewhat expensive. And he's also right now, this is a Steal the Light viewer. I think for another $200, you're going to be able to get a light pack, a powered light pack on it. So you might be looking at around $500, something like that. But maybe, you know, I'm not sure, depending on where the lenses come from, it might be less. So, but it's beautifully made and well thought out, has nice focusing. So anyway, I highly recommend Matthew's work.
Thanks a ton, Bob. That's amazing. It's great to see you, and I'm looking forward to seeing those B shots in the folio.
Yeah.
I see that we're pretty well at time. I'm not sure how long we're able to continue going. I saw that Francois wanted to screen share some photos of cameras. Maybe, I don't know if he's able to do that or if he could post them to the list. And we also have David and Colleen. Let's go. David, go ahead.
Okay, I just had a real quick one more. The jig that I use for mounting. This, I'm using the 3D World plastic mounts, and Jacob Van Eckeren, who's unfortunately passed away, we used to sell his products, and we were good friends with him. So I asked him one day, I said, well, could you make me a jig for this mount? And this is what he came up with. And it's totally visual, but you know, I just am able to put this on a light box, and it's very handy, but I'm just showing it in case somebody likes the design, they could copy something similar.
That's fantastic. It looks like you got lots of room for your hands. So I like that design. That's
Yeah,
quite
I
nice.
have room around it, and I just visually, there's no grid, but I just use the edges of the frame to, you know, do it visually.
Fantastic, thanks. Colleen?
Sure.
Oh yeah, just a couple of quick, like on the creative side of things. Steve was talking about experiments, and Jim Harp was talking about F22 and don't bother focusing. And I found this horribly mounted card, but it's a image I shot in 2002 with my Sputnik rig. I think this was before Dunlop ever got to it. This is totally out of focus. I mean, the focus was only good on this lens. But I was shooting with a Vivitar 283 flash. So you can shoot so cheaply with this camera, with the Sputnik. The Vivitar 283 you can probably pick up for $50. And with that, I was going to like bars and house parties, and I would zone focus at 5 feet. Just I'd be standing in front of people. And from this picture, you can see it's not waist level shooting and it's not eye level shooting. I was kind of shooting about here. I wasn't bothering to focus at all. I would just set the focus on the camera at maybe 5 feet, and then my f-stop at f11, and just, it was like shooting a moment. I got that from my wedding photography days. So just a couple of creative tips for people using this Sputnik.
Nice.
Fantastic, that's great.
Those are good images. I was just previewing them.
Oh, thanks.
Me too.
Oh, can I just say one more thing real quickly too? You know, with digital and other technologies now, we can't do double exposures. This was a total accident where I'd taken a picture of my twin sister and then it superimposed a new image. But these cameras, you don't have to forward to the next 2 pictures. You can just do double exposures.
Right.
2 in 1. That's awesome. I don't know if
And
Francois.
I've made it so that Francois can share his screen. He should be able to now.
Awesome.
Okay, so let's see. Do I have to click this one? Do you see my screen?
Yeah. No, you need to go to the bottom. You should have a green button that says share screen,
Yes.
and then find the window that you want to share and select that.
Okay. Which is a little tricky. Okay, I think this is it. No, or this. Okay, this should be it actually.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna put this here. Okay, so this is okay, are you seeing this?
Yep.
Because I don't know what
No, we don't see the other picture. You only shared the one window. What you could do is end your share screen, and when you go back, share your whole desktop.
Let's see. Please move this window away from the shared application. Okay.
Yeah, go to the red end share screen and click that to stop sharing.
Okay. Oh, this is okay. Stop share. Okay.
Yes. Okay. So this time, when you go to share your screen, instead of picking the window, you should see something that says screen 1. Select screen 1, and that'll share your whole desktop. And then we should see the pictures that you open.
Okay. I just see screen here, so I'll try this one here. Okay. Are you seeing this?
Yes.
Yeah. Now we see it.
Okay, so you see like the whole screen with the camera?
We see it.
Okay. Okay, great. Okay, so this is a camera that was designed by a little group of 3 people back in 1991, and it was custom made from scratch. The entire body was machined out of a piece of aluminum.
Wow.
And it has Schneider Super Angulon 47 millimeter lenses. I added a few things. I added this Photoman rangefinder. And the interesting thing is that the original design was actually looking like
Like a TL120.
like a TL120.
Yeah.
Yeah. This was the original design, and this goes back to around 1990. So they actually went the other way around. Like I think Stephen mentioned that when 3D World came up with their original prototype, it was a rangefinder camera. And then when they saw Sam's 3-lens camera, they said, oh, let's do this instead.
Yeah.
But we did the exact opposite. You know, it started out with this 3-lens camera, and we decided to drop the prism third lens. So another interesting thing here is, okay, so let's see, because I was checking this. Okay, so this shows you the inside of the 6x7 camera. Now, the idea behind doing 6x7 was actually to pattern it after the IMAX stereo camera, because the IMAX had a format that was pretty much 6x7 and wide angle lenses. So what we were trying to do is reproduce the IMAX resolution and field of view, but on a still camera. And ultimately, what we had in mind was to create a viewer that would also be wide angle. And this is where we kind of hit a wall, because when you go down to lower than 60 millimeters, optics become extremely complex to create without distortion. So after a while, we ended up just, you know, using regular 75 millimeter lenses. And I ended up actually fitting the 6x7 slides into 6x6 mounts.
Okay.
So it wasn't you know, in the end, the effort maybe was an ideal that we couldn't totally reach. But there's, you know, I guess there would be ways of doing it now. Now, the other thing I wanted to show is that we weren't the only ones that did this kind of experiment. And probably one of the most expensive, because by the way, this camera was $8,000. Now, there was, you think this is expensive, but there was another guy in Germany that also designed a medium format 3D camera. His name was Dr. Gildy. And the lens board was actually designed by the same person that was working on our camera. But this camera ended up $20,000. So it was a pretty expensive. Also, well, the thing about the Gilde camera was a modular design, so you could have 2D, you know, 2D macro like this here. And also, I recently came across another camera that he designed, which I think is a double 8x10 camera. So you can see the lens module here, and you have two 8x10 you know, modules on either side. So this is getting pretty crazy. I don't know how we use these slides, but let's see what else I have here.
You probably have to mount them on the wall and use one of those large stereoscopes.
Here's the camera again. This is totally nuts, but you know, it's fun to see people are doing this. And this is a more recent design. Let me see what else I have here.
We really need to wrap up. We're already 15 minutes over time.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Okay. So I'll let's see.
I know there was a guy that had someone put together two Mamiya 7s.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna show. I have.
Oh,
this.
okay.
I have this. Here you go. This is it.
That's it.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, that's this guy was doing this in the 90s too, but he was charging $5,000 for, you know, you would have to supply the lens, the whole camera, the two cameras, and he would charge $5,000 to put them together. But he did a great job. Yeah. So there's,
Well, we do need to wrap it up here. We're way over on time, so.
Everybody just join the folios, and then we can, you know, keep discussing things.
And join the MF3D group on groups.io for further discussion, and you can post and ask questions and go for it. So.
And everybody can meet up in Gathertown and talk about it.
Yeah.
That too.
Thank you, guys. This was fantastic.
Thank you.
Bye, folks.
Ready?
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hi.
Eric, do you know what's next? Is there a show?
Yeah. Next up, we have workshops from Gordon Au on artificial intelligence in 3D and Dr. Gunter Pomaska on 3D using webcams and Raspberry Pis. So if those interest you, go back to the website and you can click the next event link, and that'll bring you back to the next Zoom. We'll see you there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Eric.
Bye. Bye.